And now for Act 3. Celica gets pissed off at Alm and runs away. Then, a member of the Blue Man group creates an earthquake that teleports under the party. This mysterious hero with a beak covering his eyes charges into this incredibly dangerous situation and rescues Celica from the falling rocks. Unfortunately, everyone else dies because they can't fit on his horse. How sad. Anyway, Celica heads over to the Zophian coast for some fun in the sun. The party is a bit split up though. Most of our units are in the southwest corner, fighting the majority of the enemies in the center of the map, but Jenny cranks out her classic illusions. Valbar, Bowie, and May are in the top right, helping a couple of Pegasus Knights, and Saber heads off to kill the guy that's alone in the bottom right of the map. Of course, the enemies do teleport around a bit, but they're usually so weakened on enemy phase that by the time the ally phase rolls around, they're ripe for Paula, Catria, or Illusion to swoop in and steal a kill. Now that Leonardo is a sniper, his ability to destroy everything is just beginning to show itself.
Perfect!
Celica's team gets even more efficient when Jenny has Physic, so I make sure to let her go ahead and kill Garth with her own bare hands so she can learn it. Mission complete. Act 3 has reinforcements, and they keep coming, so if I want to get the Blitzkrieg achievements, which I do, I have to hurry. Speaking of which, let's go backwards and grab Paula and Catria. To keep them around, I make sure the White Wings have nothing to return home for, and then head off to a skirmish. Usually, my strategy has been to clump my units up and let the enemy come to us, but now we're going to be heading into battles where that isn't immediately possible. In this case, everyone's scattered along the width of the map. The enemy distribution is also sparse, so they tend to teleport from one side of the map to the other. That doesn't mean this particular battle is a challenge, but it is a taste of what's to come. The mountain village gives us a chance for a breather. I talk to the fish crazy man and give him some dried shield fish. He instantly fades into oblivion. I have enough books full of maps, but I grab Atlas anyway. The Forge is a magical place where you can trade in a bunch of Nintendo no bad juice for silver coins and then exchange said coins for goods, such as a steel sword +1, which I turn into a silver sword +1, which goes to Corrin. I think about taking Atlas back to her shrine, but then I think about reinforcements and how annoying they are, so after fighting some more zombos and their leader, we head into the fun desert. First things first, I have Jenny go forward a bit and invoke. Knowing the illusions can teleport, I want them to whittle the enemy down as much as possible. This map is where the earlier tests of splitting the party start to matter. Paula and Catria are together on the right and trade the javelin between them to hit the Arcanists. Leon's there to get in his trick shots, Silver Sword Kamui is here to carve the clearest path to the fort, and Atlas is helping somehow. Meanwhile, Jenny is on the left side to crank out illusions, May and Bowie are here to thunder guys at a distance, Saber's around to finish people off, Valbar is around to take damage, and Celica's goal is basically to just not die. The slow crawl towards Wolf goes well until, predictably, one of the archers teleports out to harass Atlas from behind and to show him just how easily he can be killed in 2 rounds. And an illusion goes after said archer instead of literally anyone else. The teleportation AI does appear to favor isolated targets, even in the untainted version of the game, so that makes sense. The gambit does eventually pay off as Kamui closes in on the stronghold entryway with Leon's help. Now everyone that wants to leave the building has to teleport out, and since only 3 enemies can teleport per turn, that's a weight lifted off my shoulders. Now to work on cleaning up the outside, one shaky accuracy attack at a time. Speaking of which, Corrin only succeeds at this plan if he survives a bunch of attacks by Wolf and his archer buddies, so he has to dodge multiple attacks for this to work. Turn wheel for the win. He is key to beating this map, so Jenny's physics get focused on him. Paula removes the last remaining enemy outside, and we work on eliminating nearly dead archers one at a time. I use May to get rid of an archer, Saber and Kamui take on their own enemies, and even Catria flies in to have a little fun. Wolf is silly enough to go for an illusion, and I'm silly enough to gamble on Bowie critting Wolf, but you know what? Sometimes gambling pays off. At this point, all we have to do is clean up the last of the archers, so we kill the guy with the iron bow since he's the last enemy that can do effective damage to our White Wings. Of course, as we start to close in, the archers want out. 2 of them teleport to either side behind our lines, and we have some backtracking ahead of us. After a turn wheel to fix some tile misses, Paula kills one indoors, and Illusion steals the other one, and Bowie takes out one of the outside guys, and Leon wraps things up. It only took 9 turns, and although it was one of the harder battles we've seen so far, there's definitely worse ahead. In the stronghold, I steal the steel lance for Paula and give May the angel ring. I grab all the goodies in the war room and I break Jesse out of jail. Jesse explains we have to choose between fighting Dean or Sonia. Of course, as a Shadows of Valentia expert, I know that whichever one we don't kill now will be recruited later. Dean is clearly a better unit than Sonia, but Jenny needs a support partner, so Dean is protected by mercenaries and a few myrmidons. Of all the enemy types we faced so far, it's these guys that have presented the most trouble, because not only can they teleport, they can double most of my units quite easily. So it's important to give them some cannon fodder. That's where Jenny's illusions come into play. Here's to hoping they take the bait. Oh, they didn't. Not only do we not see a single enemy teleport, but an illusion decides to bravely sacrifice itself to Dean for some reason. After another turn of inching closer to the enemies, they still don't teleport. This is bad. I was hoping to peel some of the enemies away so I wouldn't have to face them all in one clump. Now I have no choice but to take them all on at once. But the illusions that teleport behind Dean's group give me some hope that there will be some relief next turn. I spend player phase chipping away at one of the enemies and ultimately killing them, and making sure my illusions in the back are healed. Dean, fortunately, is tricked into heading backwards along with one of the myrmidons. On player phase, May and Bowie help with knocking out a couple more enemies, and with the right side of the map cleared, I feel a lot more confident about my chances. Celica scoring a convenient crit on another myrmidon and learning Recover is another boost to my morale. I make it a point to move my units in a way that sandwiches the illusions between my units and the enemy, knowing that the illusions will probably die soon. And that's exactly what happens. So I make even more illusions, then begin my assault on the last few enemies. Everyone that's within attacking range does their part here. Now I just have to hope Dean favors attacking the illusions instead of my units, and he does. So Bowie softens him up, and May knocks him down with her handy-dandy aura. The last enemies are starting to retreat, so I let Paola and Katria go after them both, since they can fly over the sand, and that's the end of that. I give Jesse the newfound Brave Sword, thinking that he can at least contribute something to the next battle and head off. I'm sure it won't be a problem, because every battle I've been afraid of so far has turned out to be easy. Oh, okay then. Let's just reload and try again. This section of my footage is called Greeth's Citadel Somehow.mp4, and for good reason. A lot of attempts involved Greeth teleporting behind me on turn 1 or 2 and just being a jerk to my units. Dealing with him alone is one thing, and dealing with his minions alone is another, but when they're close together and we have to deal with them all at once, that's basically impossible. So I restart a lot, until I get a few turns into one attempt and have cleared out pretty much all the initial advancing enemies except for Greeth. I use that chance to chip away at his ridiculous defenses with magic before gutting him with Kamui Silver Sword on turn 8. And I still have all of my turn wheels, so I feel pretty confident about this one. It's just a matter of carefully advancing, deleting enemies that are close to the group, and dealing with anyone who happens to teleport behind us. Then of course there's the Cantor churning out an endless amount of obstacles to slow me down. The Cantor wears out his welcome pretty quickly, especially as I struggle to get rid of the snipers in the middle of the map. I do eventually address that issue with Paola and Katria, and with a little help from Leon. Realizing I need an edge, I have Jesse and Saber trade swords so that Jesse can deal effective damage on the monsters and Saber can rely on critting. And Leather Shield Bowie easily takes them on during enemy phase as well. And then something a bit annoying happens. I knew there was always a possibility, of course, that Cantors would take advantage of having the teleportation skill in interesting ways relative to their non-aggressive AI, but I was hoping it would happen when I wasn't already halfway to the other side of the map. So I let my frontline units continue to fight off Bonewalkers while the backline heads back to chase the Cantor. Then, literally one turn later, he teleports again. Knowing that killing the Cantor will get rid of the Bonewalkers, I rush head first, wait for the Bonewalkers to teleport and burn up those 3 teleports per turn, before the Cantor has a chance to use them, and then on the next turn, clear a path through their line. I hope for a crit with Saber and don't get it, because why would I? Fortunately though, the Cantor stays in place and Paola easily kills him. That was ridiculous, but at least it's done. With Greeth's Citadel under Celica's control, I loot the spoils, get Sonia on our side, rescue this convenient plot device from the dungeon, and recruit Est onto the team. There's nothing left here for us, so it's time to backtrack, fight graveyard zombies, and head back to Zofia Harbor to give the fugue shield I found in Greeth's Citadel back to this guy. He gives us a golden apple, which I don't immediately do anything with, despite the fact that I tend to forget about stat boosters. Another fight with generic zombies later, I'm able to stop at the mountain village to send the Rion shield found in the desert stronghold over to Alm, trade in some garbage at the smithy, and forge a killer bow. After another brief ambush in the graveyard, I head north and encounter this man with a toothbrush on his head. Blake doesn't have a ton of forces, but I decide to clump my units anyway, guessing that I'll get attacked from both sides. I'm able to deal with actual witches well enough at this point, but a teleport from Blake would be devastating. The new killer bow comes in handy, but whenever it doesn't, kill, someone else is always nearby to actually get the job done. After getting Est used to the feeling of taking the life of a Regalian, we're down to 3 enemies and Blake teleports, but doesn't attack. A critical hit from Leon, followed by another crit from Saber, and this toothbrush needs to be replaced. The White Wings clear out the last 2 enemies and this battle is over. Next up is the Dragon Shrine. I take in everyone that is ready for promotion, as well as my mages, in the hopes of giving them experience and getting them closer to promoting. I choose to make Atlas a mage because I always want to challenge myself and see if I can have him learn Rescue before the end of the game without grinding. I'm sure it'll definitely happen this time. Paula becomes a Falcon Knight, and Jessie is a Myrmidon now. Most of the battles in the Dragon Shrine are easy. I'm very overqualified for ending them in one turn as long as my gamer reflexes enable me to hit the enemies with Celica's sword. And when it doesn't, well, bad things happen. Anyway, the first and only challenging battle here is the reminder of why this place is called the Dragon Shrine. I clump my units together in such a way that most of them can't get attacked by more than one dragon, even if one of them were to teleport. None of them do though, luckily enough, so I take down a dragon at a time until S misses a crucial hit and dies on enemy phase to the last dragon. Typical S stuff, but nothing a turn wheel can't fix. She gets it right on attempt number 2, and then I lose Atlas because I forget fire costs 1 HP. After another rewind, May chips the dragon down and S bags another one. I leave the normal way so I can run into another battle and get Saber a teensy bit more experience, then I head back to Milla's Shrine to promote him to a Dreadfighter. I realize I forgot about that woman's definitely dead son, so I Metal Gear my way through the dungeon one more time just to grab his journal. But instead of returning it immediately, I go to the Temple of Milla to face Mikhail, who threatens to have his gargoyles for us. I disagree with this approach, and tend to tell him as much just as soon as I get up these stairs. The White Wings think stairs are lame though, so we'll see how that goes. An Arcanist immediately goes after Bowie, and a Sniper teleports to kill Jenny in one round. So I turn wheel back to the point Bowie was attacked, hoping to avoid the Sniper teleport, and something weird happens. Another Arcanist teleports to attack Kamui, Mikhail gets behind us and summons gargoyles, and another Arcanist teleports close to the White Wings. 3 teleporting enemies, on top of the initial enemy that attacked Bowie. So either the teleport limit is not in fact 3 enemies per turn, or there's a limit, but using the turn wheel to return to an earlier enemy phase action resets the count to 0. Just intelligent systems things, I guess. Anyway, I make it a point to target the closest enemies, using turn wheels to fix oopsies when necessary, and I send Saber off on his own to go after the boss while the White Wings retreat. Until Saber reaches the boss, I just focus on getting rid of the enemies closest to my vulnerable units. A couple of stupid risks later, and well, I have to turn wheel again. But I do get rid of the Sniper another way, and Leon and Saber take care of Mikhail with incredible ease. Since this is Shadows of Valentia, I still have to route the enemies on the map, but the process is nothing to write home about. Just dealing with enemies that teleport behind the group, while advancing to get anyone who refuses to budge. I'm so glad I made Atlas a mage. It's a bit awkward to have Saber run from one end of the map to the other, but whatever gets the mission complete, I guess. Finally, the Temple of Milla. First things first. Jenny heads to the idol to become a saint. Good job, Jenny. In the temple chamber, Plot Lady tells us that Milla has been kidnapped when Rudolph came and wrecked a bunch of stuff. Also, he stole the crown, I guess. That doesn't matter because Masked Knight stole the stolen crown and unstole it back to Celica. Celica gets her promotion and immediately goes into the basement. Here, I give a level to Bowie, which puts him about 20 experience away from promotion, and another level to May, which puts her about 40 experience past promotion. Perfect for finally becoming a priestess. With that out of the way, Celica opens her side of the sluice, and is informed someone will have to open the other side. Speaking of someone, what's Alm been up to the past 36 days of Pegastem 401? He's been trading Rion shields for cheese, and giving cheese to this lactose-intolerant old man in exchange for spice. The classic shields for cheese for spice scheme ensures we'll have plenty of money for later. But first, back to the Deliverance hideout to Myrmidonify Grey, before packing our things and heading off to the Northern Sofia battle. This is the battle where Alm officially learns about witches, but the bigger threats are Fernand and Zaxxon, the latter of which teleports behind Cliff and starts throwing javelins. Bosses like Zaxxon teleporting around are why Tobin is a mage. Excalibur gives him good odds to one-round him with a crit, and that's exactly what he does. With him out of the way, it'll be a lot easier to deal with the rest of the enemies on the map. Their teleporting ways are growing increasingly unkind as we get further through the game, but with 8 turn wheel uses, it's pretty hard to resist doing dangerous moves just to see what I can get away with on enemy phase. Python's death does necessitate a rollback, which leaves me quite a bit luckier with the enemies that do decide to teleport after that. On the next turn, Fernand comes by to chip out Lucas before a witch teleports and kills him with exact damage. Returning to mid-enemy phase, we can see the randomness of the teleportation AI in action, as the witch decides to go after Cliff instead. On the next turn, Clive easily defeats Fernand with the help of the Rider's Bane, and is now ready to become a paladin. Taking out the last switch requires a little more coordination on my part, with Lucas serving as delicious bait, while Alm teleports behind her, and Claire does the rare honors of ending the battle. Against my better judgment, I ignore the constant reinforcements from Rigel and go backwards to the Deliverance hideout to promote Cliff to sniper, and make Clive a paladin. This is great, except it leads to Alm getting ambushed at the north gate. This ends up putting Clive in the unenviable position of dying no matter what I seem to do, and after a while I just reset and just don't get ambushed, bro. Easy. Once they're all dead, it's time to do the Sophia Forest battle with all the Arcanists. The typical way to play this battle is to advance in such a way that the Arcanists are tempted to attack one of your units, but only from the plains. That way, they don't occupy any forests, and they're easier to hit with physical attacks. Of course, now that Arcanists are able to teleport, I have to try to bait them into teleporting into a plains tile, which is a lot harder. I do manage to get pretty lucky with it on turn 1, but there are some hard to reach enemies for turn 2. That's where Silk and her warp spell come in handy. Since Tobin can one-round many of the enemies with one Excalibur crit, I send him off to do exactly that. Make it a point to ensure that if I'm going to attack an Arcanist, I should make the full effort to kill them before they have a chance to run away to a supply tile, and so my units work as teams to deal the needed damage. Though it's certainly nice when they don't need help at all. Unfortunately, though, a random gamble I took with Cliff leads to a highly unexpected result, and an Arcanist with 3 HP decides to attack instead of flee, much to Alm's dismay. Alm's death means starting over, doing everything again, but just being more careful / lucky. Eventually, Clive kills the last enemy and we can move on. The next battle is where Alm faces off against Berkut, and in the midst of a heated duel, Berkut notices the birthmark on Alm's hand. Oh, and Fernand is here too, I guess. To start things off, I hide Lukey Poo in the woods with a Rider's Bane and keep most of my units out of range. As I hoped, Berkut rides off to attack Lucas, and I'm able to split their forces. Lucas takes his turn with the Rider's Bane, and Claire facilitates a trade with Clive so that he can have a turn with Berkut too. Unfortunately though, Python is no match for Fernand and a random paladin, but some time travel fixes that thanks to some lucky crits from Alm and Tobin. Not only is Fernand isolated, but he can't one-round any of our units without a crit. So Alm and Tobin team up to defeat Fernand, and the last generic paladin goes down with the help of arrows and Forsyth. But before the next battle, the Deliverance decides to rest for a spell at the Forest Village. Here we meet Luthier, who we lure in with a promise that we will definitely, absolutely save his sister Delphia from the Blue People. He informs us that Rigel is going to try and flood Sophia and destroy all of its oranges, so we can't hang out here for long. At the blacksmith, Alm sells that delicious spice and some grape juice in exchange for a ton of coins. We immediately blow most of the money on a +3 Rider's Bane though. After a couple more minor sales, the rest of the money is invested in de-rusting the steel sword and turning it into a silver sword, which Alm uses for now. Heading off to Desay's fortress, we meet the second recruitable character who is on her knees for some reason, and go into battle to rescue her. My opening move is to warp Lucas closer to the choke point separating the fortress from our starting position, and he holds it down with a shiny upgraded Rider's Bane. It's tempting to move him further north, but he would just get attacked a lot, including by an Arcanist that can cut half his HP. It's just not worth it right now. Besides, the payoff on enemy phase is perfect. After archers take pot shots at Matilda, Lucas wrecks all the cavaliers that attack him, and then proceeds to severely injure a knight. The witch on the right side of the map teleports and attacks Grey, which is definitely one of the more desirable targets, considering she can one-round Python and Forsyth. After having Luthier finish off the knight Lucas injured, I decide my best option for dealing with the witch is to warp Alm over to face a 2% crit. He doesn't get unlucky and just one-rounds the witch though. It's always great to see bad decision making get rewarded. After moving Lucas up to destroy a paladin, Tobin kills an archer that teleported by in the group, and Clive handles the revenant. The gang pushes into the fortress with relative ease, almost ready to rescue Matilda. The most dangerous enemies in the way are an Arcanist and, of course, Desay. To handle the latter problem, I have Lucas clear a spot on the tile, then warp Tobin up to Excalibur crit Desay, finishing him off with Grey.
No! Damn you, my son!
All I need is a lucky dodge, and I can go after the Arcanists and the Cantor. Oh, okay then. The only high-value target here now is the Arcanist, so Clive deals with that. There's an archer that's a straggler on the bottom right of the map, so Claire goes after him. I also start warping units toward the left to deal with the Arcanist once and for all. There's about 30 minutes of footage where I do absolutely nothing because I told my friend earlier I had a rough day at work, so she brought some chocolate ice cream home, as well as these captioned pictures of Lewin she drew with no knowledge of Fire Emblem outside of what's available on the Fire Emblem wiki, and watching me play 3 houses. What a sweetie. Anyway, Claire deals with the archer, and Tobin sweeps the Arcanist into the dustbin of history. Looting the fortress war room, Tobin stumbles upon a treasure chest holding the royal sword of Zofia. If nobody can lift the sword except for royalty, does putting it in a chest make the chest super heavy too? Did it say just drag it all the way here? Well, I probably shouldn't think about it too much. Anyway, I take some money in both spice form and money form, then I open the door to Matilda's cell, and she waltzes out of prison and into our party. Yay. To celebrate our victory, we go back to the forest village to trade in some things and forge a steel bow into a killer bow +2. Then it's time to move on. This map has 2 columns of cavaliers and paladins on either side of the map, led by some guy named Lawson. This battle also scatters your units along the width of the map, which always makes fighting teleporting enemies a bit more difficult. In this case, though, I have an advantage. It enables me to put Lucas with the Rider's Bane almost in range of half of the enemies on the map. At the same time, I do a bit of a fighting retreat with my units on the left side, so I can bring them together at the bottom right corner of the map as much as possible. Lucas sticks to the forests and goes Rambo on Lawson's crew, while Gray is bait to preserve at least some of the kills for other units. Lawson attacks Lucas, which is great for me, and since the AI treats Lucas as an isolated unit, the enemies are happy to teleport to their doom. On turn 3, Lucas destroys Lawson. It takes a couple more turns, but we slowly but surely clear out all the enemies, who are happy to approach us and make my job easier. 2 turns later, and the battle is complete. Next up is the Sylvan Shrine. I order my party around taking Python and Forsyth in because they badly need promotions at this point, and they both already qualify. The battles down here are not only easy for my units, but give them a chance to get closer to promotion and acquire surprise spells that will help us later. At the first fountain, I give +2 resistance to Alm because Alm's death is more of a hurdle to the run at this point than anything else. I have so many turn-wheel uses that I don't even hesitate to burn them for little things like a unit missing a non-crucial attack or getting killed by a gargoyle. I head down a hallway to grab a gold mark and meet some friendly prisoners, then head out to go to the Miller Shrine. Here I meet someone that has a lot to say about my Fire Emblem skills before running off. At the Experience Fountain, I give 2 levels to Gray and 1 to Faye. Then Lucas evolves into a Baron, Gray becomes a Dread Fighter, Tobin promotes into Sage, Python slithers into Sniper, and Forsyth reckons with the Knight class. Leaving the Sylvan Shrine, we get into a really quick skirmish before heading into the next real battle with a guy named Gazelle. I'm not entirely sure why he's named after a type of antelope, but it doesn't matter. Also, there's a bunch of Arcanists because reinforcements. I kick things off by warping up Gray to control the bridge. In response, a witch and an archer team up to kill Silk, so I turn wheel back to the beginning of the battle to move my units a bit differently and insulate Silk better. I also keep the bridge open to give enemies the option of walking. The teleporting enemies bother my units, but don't threaten any of them, and with Gazelle approaching, I decide to bring Lucas closer to the fray while my other units handle the enemies that teleported behind us. Gazelle takes the Python bait in the forest, while Gray and Lucas take out units on the front lines. Tobin moves up to enact the next phase of my plan. Python and Cliff share the killer bow to help deal with the Arcanists, and on turn 4, Tobin defeats the last enemy. Nui Baba gives Berkut Chekhov's mirror, and Alm heads to the sluice gate. Tatara makes arguably the laziest pun ever seen in a Fire Emblem game.
So the Deliverance finally deliver themselves to me.
And then Delphia tries to murder Alm. But we have a plan for her. Let Operation Just Get Lucky Bro begin. Phase 1 of this plan involves sending high resistance units like Matilda and Gray to distract the nearby Arcanists. For Phase 2, I cross my fingers and hope Tatara delivers himself to me on turn 1, which he does. In Phase 3, I'll just crit him a couple of times with the killer bow. Okay. I said I'll just crit him a couple of times with the... Ugh. In Phase 3, Silk will warp Forsyth over to Tatara and he'll deal some lethal damage. That breaks the spell on Delphia, and it's just a matter of Phase 4, routing the map because Echoes. Aside from Forsyth getting obliterated by magic, the rest of the battle's easy. Easy enough that I can take things at a slow enough pace and set up kills for weaker units with the Royal Sword Subdue combat art. Delphia is recruited, and Alm talks to a guy named Man, and opens the sluice gate, saving Zofia from drowning to death. And that's the end of Act 3.
However, a dark creature had his own plans for these fated children who bore the brand.